make it in Kirklees? What can we do to encourage people to stay in Kirklees to develop their music careers? I don't believe any of us have lived in Kirklees, but what we can do is, you do now, you live down the road, but what we can do is bring our own experiences of living elsewhere in the UK, places similar to Kirklees, and bring out what we've learned in our time. So I think let's start at the beginning, and the beginning of an artist, talking about teenagers, young teenagers, even younger than that perhaps. What do you think is the best way to encourage people to start playing music? Of course, some of us are lucky to have had free lessons in schooling. I know that's something that kind of comes in and out of the education system. What's your experience, Jo?
I think it comes down to the ideal, as we all probably agree, is that every child gets that opportunity to learn music, enjoy music through school. But I think, and I suppose another ideal in my mind is that also from a young age, children and young people are introduced to also the whole of the music industry and kind of what that looks like. And because I think even if you are lucky enough to get given an instrument at school, which let's face it isn't guaranteed now, I still don't think that then connects with thinking I can make a career out of this, or there's a career pathway within this. So I think it's ideally giving every child and young person that chance to learn and enjoy music, but then also showing them like this is a whole industry and there are many pathways to make it into your living, really. Yeah,
that perception of taking it seriously and realising you can play a gig and maybe make 50 quid, 150, 500, at some point as a young teenager. How about you?
Similar. I mean, I went to a really rubbish comprehensive in Bootle, so we never got taught music, and I quickly learned one of the things I was going to be bad at was being a musician, which is why I became a music journalist. But I think so. What we do really is we've been working with the music hubs in education stuff to try and more about the broader careers, because not everybody's going to succeed as a musician. So it's all those stuff around it, like the lighting, sounds, everything around that gets a musician on stage. There's lots more jobs there. So we've been trying to get them to work. Get them to understand and then get them to work with careers teachers and teachers in schools so that they know where to direct people into those jobs, and we've been doing that through we've got a music board which has really been useful, and trying to spread those messages, and through we've got some great talent development programs, including one that we're responsible for, which is probably way ahead of the game in terms of inclusion stuff. When it started 10 years ago, it was the most diverse, inclusive program I've ever seen, really, and gone on to have some big successes. And that's largely about that's at the level when people have got a certain level of talent, and we're trying to help them through the industry so they don't fall foul of bad management or signing rubbish deals or knowing how to present themselves with through videos and all that sort of stuff. And so I think it's not an easy one, and I think music in schools is probably vital, but I've never experienced it. I don't know many people who do anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting actually. I've just come at this from the other side, which is as a parent and kids going through primary school and actually being on the receiving end of that whole class music tuition that hubs have to do. And it's really interesting seeing how it can work quite well. My son just did a year of brass, which was great, and had some really good tuition. But what struck me and strikes me still is how few role models there are. So you can do that in classrooms, and particularly at a young age, how important bringing in role models who are doing the thing. It was Danny, I think, earlier on the earlier panel was talking, and I thought he needs to be in every school, or a version of Danny, because of that enthusiasm, but also just the sort of saying it as it is, and then young people seeing that sort of role and going, actually, that could be for me.
Yeah, proof of concept. Yeah. Right. I mean, I think it happens on both ends of the spectrum, but a lot of older people playing music aren't given the opportunities that a 20-year-old is, nor is someone who's a young teenager. I think taking away that kind of age judgment is perhaps something to think about there.
There's a great project in Liverpool run by an organisation called the Clore, which is a real proper community organisation based in Dingle, and Timo's in a band called T Street Band, a great band, just started working there on a voluntary basis, teaching people guitar, and it's everyone from like 5 to like 85, and he come to like festivals now, and he's done this amazing thing called like 500 guitars, where some quite famous musicians are coming along, but that's not the main point of it. It's about getting all these people enjoying that communal experience of playing live music with other people, all that thing that brings, and you know, and it's one of, I'm like an old harvest in it, but it is one of the when they had the 600 guitars in St George's Hall, it was really emotional and powerful, because it was just, I talk about music businesses most of the time, but actually things like that remind you of the power of music, you know, just playing it and watching people enjoying playing it.
I think there's something we can do about the perception of the way we see music, and someone was saying about it earlier, but kind of separating music as being this kind of abstract entertainment. No, you know, there is an ecosystem there as much as any other job. I mean, what about business models in music? Speaking for myself, I was lucky enough to grow up in an area where there were local gigs, and the promoter was someone who was at my school but a bit older, and I kind of gleaned from how they were operating. Oh, you know, this is a sustainable business model. Put on a gig, people come, money exchanges hands, and goes through the ecosystem of the bands and the promoter and the venue. How do you think that there could be more? I mean, there can be more done, but in what arena can we educate and inform people, young people, from the very beginning of their journey in music, to create a business model?
So I was watching, you know, on Instagram, how you occasionally get these pop-ups of sort of adverts that are slightly sort of commercial and so on. There was a guy this morning, I thought, oh, I'll watch this. I normally avoid them, but I'm coming to this event. And it was somebody saying, how do you, as a musician, make a career that's not just about music? And he was trying to sell shit, right? That was kind of the thing. He wanted you to buy his $100 a week program to work out your career. But it really struck me as really interesting that two things. One is that clearly the sector's under massive pressure. And again, it was said earlier, but funding is really hard. So actually it is hard to make a living purely from music. And the other thing is, actually then, what are those transferable skills? Nikki said it earlier, right? The kind of what else have you got if you're a musician? And the answer is tons. But actually it's quite hard, I think, to then quantify and articulate that. I mean, I've not done it as a career. Maybe you can talk to that a bit more.
One thing I think about when I was playing music is I found it very hard to take myself seriously. You know, it was a glorified hobby, and I had an internal struggle of being like, well, this is all I want to do, but I can't take myself seriously as I would do working behind the counter at the supermarket, which I was also doing at the time.
Yeah.
Joe, how do you weigh on?
Yeah, I think, as you said, I think it's hard right now, and the competition is tough. And I think for us at Reform, a lot of what we focus on is trying to support young people to develop careers within the wider creative industries. But I think in reality that is often, you know, you're developing as an artist, but really the likelihood is you're probably going to be generating income and working, you know, another job along the side of that. And I think one way that we try and do that is also, you know, supporting people in developing skills that are relevant across the creative industry. So, you know, an understanding that as well as being an artist, there are a number of sort of meaningful careers that you can have within the industry. You know, and for us that might be like supporting people to develop skills in things like sound engineering, production, you know, podcasting we spoke about earlier. But I think it's a massive issue in the sector that actually, you know, artists face so many barriers, and if you are coming from a place where you're facing more barriers, and in particular like finance barriers, then you know, really what is needed is more funding and investment and support. And so I do think it's on the industry itself, you know, organisations like Reform and lots of, you know, roles that other people here today are kind of, you know, doing in the sector, I think is about creating more opportunities for people to kind of get in and develop the skills. You know, and there's part of what I do is support artists in accessing funding. So the, you know, Arts Council, Youth Music, PRS, there are grants out there, but again, they're hard to access and competition is tough. So I think, you know, the answer is probably artists are having to do lots of different things to kind of create a business model that works for them.
I think small bits of, someone before mentioned money, and small bits of money can make a big difference. So even like trying to start, if you're, like we've done some stuff locally in different boroughs and in Liverpool, where just to try and encourage people, young promoters, like if you can give someone who comes to you with an idea to do a gig in a local pub, or you de-risk it for them, because if you're 16, 18, you can't afford to lose 500 quid, but they're guaranteed 500 quid, they can go to set up a gig, and then they might learn from that, and then with a business, it's stuff. In Bennett's here, who's worked with me on stuff, but like I once gave £3,000 when I was working at Creative Industry Sports to a lad called Chris, who was 21. He was at Lipper, which is a university in Liverpool. He had an idea around this tech thing around publishing. That he sold that business last year and this is only 10 years. He sold that business for $50 million, and that was just because someone was prepared. It wasn't just the $3,000 that we gave him. It was like then he got serious investors and stuff. But I can say loads of examples where there's a little bit of enterprise fund which doesn't expect someone to be able to do a brilliant business plan or have tons of experience, and accept that, like, three you might only have 2 successes out of 10. But those successes, Chris now employs 100 odd people in Liverpool, turns over huge amounts, worldwide organisation, staying in Liverpool, growing it even though he sold it. And it's that kind of small amounts of money that can, councils around here can find a way to do that. I think that will really help.
Marvo, sorry, we've been totally neglecting you. How do you weigh in? What are your experiences of finding a sustainable model in business and how we can progress there?
Well, for me, on a personal level, and I just backtrack a little there, is that my panel there said that we all, I could speak personally as a musician, because I'm a musician, I sing and I play the keyboard. And one of the things that, for artists such as myself is that you have to wear different hats. You have to do so many things that you can't concentrate on your musical career. So she was correct when she said that you have to maneuver so many things to make your career work. So I think one of the things is that, you could just get different people, because everybody is skilled in a different area. So if you could just get that networking where you could get persons, somebody to manage, somebody to, do the accounting, and everybody just wears a different hat, and then you could network and everybody could be able to just do what you love to do best, which is just concentrate on the music. That would be a good way for us to be able to sustain yourself, maybe in Kirklees, so you could get that part of that aspect of it done. In particular with the finance part of it, the finances it's not easily accessible, and that's another experience that I could talk about in terms of projects and grants and that kind of thing. You have to be able to write grants to get projects and so on and so forth done. So all these are different things. Some persons are willing to learn the different areas so that you be able to have a thriving career, and then some persons are not able to be able to balance and manage everything to get everything done. So it's all about networking and getting different people, getting a team together to get things done. And I think that's one of the ways where you could be able to stay and concentrate on your music. If you have a team that is willing to work to make everything successful, then it can be striving for you to be able to stay there and have that incentive to be able to move your career forward.
Incentive and taking yourself seriously. The Come Play With Me A&R said earlier how that network, that idea, that strong idea of networking that's so associated with London, bring that up north, and specifically we're talking about Kirklees here, right? I mean, in a town like this, in this area, where we're actually so close to Leeds, and whatever kind of music you're playing in, you can establish yourself here while knowing that you don't always have to play in the same area every weekend. You can come in and out. I mean, what does that mean?
Yeah.
What does that mean for Kirklees specifically, do you think?
I was thinking about networks on the way up, because actually that's exactly how we operate as an organisation at Clore Leadership. We talk about peer learning a lot. We bring people together and then they learn from one another, and the way they do that is by forming those networks. We tend to do that geographically dispersed, but it's an interesting question about in a specific geography, and I think it requires a few things. Not least this sort of event, and it's great that people are here, and it's great that the funders and others are here. You sort of need to continue doing it rather than it being one-off. But it also needs everybody, and I really mean everybody, even if they're quite early doors in career, to sort of feel like they are obliged or have a role in that networking to give back as well. And there's something about the generosity that is required from everybody involved in something for a networking to actually work. So that people see value in talking and value in going in and having the conversation and value in taking on a peer mentor role or being a mentee and sort of creating those values. And so I'm being a bit waffly and wide, but then as I was thinking about it, and I've come up from London today, so I was looking at the geography as we were going, looking at that sort of fact that you're in this sort of triangle of, you know, Sheffield, Leeds, Manchester and all of that. Actually, why keep it just to Kirklees? Yes, it's great that Kirklees is doing really interesting and good things in the Year of Music, but that geographical border is sort of in your head, right? And most musicians, presumably, if they're trying to make a career out of something, they wouldn't bat an eyelid at going to Manchester to do a gig. They wouldn't bat an eyelid at going to London or going to Groningen or to New York, right? So why stick your networks there? And why not try and make them a bit more fluid?
It's worth saying here that because the music industry is always changing, there isn't a roadmap. That means there could be a village somewhere close or far to here where a scene, you know, we call it music scenes, right? A scene is way ahead of the game than the A&R at Warner or UMG or Sony. You know, I think knowing it doesn't matter whether you're in a small or large area, that you can really do some brain work and be as smart as you can and be ahead of the curve, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I live in a small village not far from here, which I think has a great music scene. But I think also there is something about, I suppose, like who's facilitating those networks, because I think they do grow organically, and that's great and that works. But I think there is also a role for kind of supporting those networks, particularly if you're talking about younger artists who maybe don't have the networks within their own circles, their own lives. And so for like something at Reform that we do is around that idea of mentorship and bringing in like real industry experts, artists that are successful. And I think success also looks different to different people. So I think it's that idea of it isn't just make or break. It isn't just kind of artists that are, you know, really mega stars. It's like people that are living and working as artists and have made a career from it. And sort of facilitating that network, but also investing some money in it. I actually think, you know, ideally artists should be paid if they're providing proper mentorship. That's something that we should value, and the industry should try and support that financially as well. So I think, yeah, it's a mix really of that kind of organic growth, but also putting some facilitation in and maybe partnership work across those cities. You know, there are, as some of you know from today, the trains are a bit of a challenge. So like that would help if our trains worked a bit better. But I think there's so much work going on across all these northern cities and towns that ideally if we could link up a bit more, it's something we've thought about, and we know we should do more at Reform in reaching out a bit wider. So yeah, I think there's lots that could be done.
Marvo, how do you think about networking, but also really thinking about on-the-ground mentors and mentorees?
Right. So those words kind of jump out in terms of I spoke a while ago about the networking. That is so valuable. If you could get the right networking and get everybody involved, but the groundwork is also, and mentorship program is very, very important. If you have that mentorship program and you could get persons so interested at an earlier age about what they want to do with their music career, you could get that instill at a young age, you know, that was something that would be so viable, and it could go a long way, especially if you start with the groundwork and get it done properly, put the right infrastructure in place and everything of that sort. It could be very, very dynamic in getting, you know, making the music work in Kirklees.
I mean, the changing of technology is something that is prominent. I mean, we've seen that with SoundCloud rap, in the way that rappers have built their communities over SoundCloud, using the internet to create, exactly what we're talking about here. How do you see that progressing and people being introduced to it and people flourishing in it?
It's going to get bigger and bigger. I mean, I think you've got I chaired a panel a while ago, which was really interesting, with a young artist we've worked with on our academy program called Michael Aldag. He's now signed to 3 Beats and is getting loads of attention. He basically came to prominence because during COVID he started doing these hilarious TikTok videos. He's a brilliant musician, great songwriter, which is why he got signed, but actually the fact that he's got almost 1 million TikTok followers means like he's big news, and that's made his career thing. But then on the same panel was Gaia from DJ Collective Girls Don't Sink, and we were going again massively successful at the moment, but like she does all their social media stuff, and it's turned out how stressful it can be. So I think my advice always would be, when I'm speaking to artists now, we're saying you've actually got to be really smart with your social media, because that's what record labels and stuff are looking for if you're looking to get signed. You've got to work out what you want to post and build up your identity through that, but don't let it rule your life. I mean, Jamie Webster, another local artist, Jamie's always saying on stage, he's like, that shit that's on Instagram and stuff, don't believe it. He said, I know I post on it, but that's because that's my job. But like, that's not real life. So I think, I think it's about working out how you use it rather than letting you use it. But for artists, it's a valuable tool if you're smart about it and have proper social media strategy rather than just think I must post because I've written half a new song.
How about turning your social numbers into subscription numbers?
Yeah, I mean, I think that model is clearly really important, and technology evolution is really important. I think back to the networking thing briefly, technology can really support that as well, and that's important. Actually, I sort of want to talk to the opposite. Sorry, I know you wanted to talk technology, but actually there's something really valuable about the in-person experience and the uniqueness of seeing live performance. And the question for this panel was, how do you keep performers in Kirklees? And so there was something for me really gritty about the need to see performers live and the need to realise that you're seeing something that you can only experience the once in a venue like we are going to later here, and how do those experiences matter? And actually post-COVID, how much more important they are. So yeah, the technology is important, but I don't think we should sacrifice the value and uniqueness of live performance.
I feel like something that Britain can really learn from countries like Germany is when local councils can actually fund events. So the promoter, who may be a 17-year-old kid putting on their 3rd gig, doesn't want to lose money betting on a band coming from a few towns away. And if the local government can give, it might be 500, might be 300, might be 1,000, to allow events to flourish. They give somewhere to listen to music, somewhere to socialise, somewhere to go, somewhere to get away from this element of escapism. I think that's something that would really flourish. I mean, England is so synonymous with the Beatles, the Rolling Stones. We celebrate music everywhere we go, yet we don't seem to really put that in action.
No, I was talking to Robin, who's a creative industries person here before, and I still, even though Liverpool, the figures for Liverpool are ridiculous, it's 100 million a year of music tourism, 100 million a year of directly attributable to the music sectors. That's 200 million a year, like minimum. And I still have to have battles as why we should keep pushing the city as a music city. And to be honest, Eurovision has been a major driver in helping me to get some of the things done that I've been trying to get done for the last 3 years, because finally people have gone, oh yeah, I get that. And it's, I think in terms of here, I think that the way to do it is to start growing that ecology and getting people to understand the value of it. Doing lots of, I say that, as you said, the live music experience is really important, and that once people see that value, but kind of keep banging away at the message that it is an economy. It's not just the few people on stage who are actually good at what they do. It's all that stuff around it that creates good jobs for people and lifetime careers, really.